This is a WSKG News Special. I'm Charles Compton. The following is a candidates forum hosted earlier this week by the Binghamton Rotary Club. Their spotlight was on the 22nd Congressional District, where incumbent Republican Richard Hanna is retiring. All three contenders were present. They were introduced by Rotary Club member and moderator Linda Beamer.
First candidate, Kim Myers, lives in Vestal and was raised on the east side of Binghamton. She grew up working in the family business, which became Dick's Sporting Goods. Later, she ran her own successful small business. She was educated as a teacher at SUNY Cortland. She's married to Tim Myers, and is the mother of 6 children. And she spent 18 years as a member of the Vestal School Board. Since 2014, she's been a member of the Broome County Legislature and is currently Minority Chair. Claudia Tenney lives in New Hartford, which is near Utica. A lawyer, she is also co-owner and legal counsel of Mid-York Press in Sherburne. She served as Chief of Staff for New York Assemblyman David Townsend for 7 years before becoming a member of the New York State Assembly herself, representing the Utica area since 2010. She's a graduate of Colgate University and the Taft College of Law at the University of Cincinnati. She has a grown son. Martin Babinick lives in Little Falls, which is east of Utica. A businessman, in 1988 he created TriNet in the Silicon Valley, California, and later returned to New York State, founding in 2010 Upstate Venture Connect, a nonprofit organization for entrepreneurs to connect with needed resources, and later he started Start Fast Adventure Accelerator. He's a graduate of Herkimer County Community College and Shippensburg College in Pennsylvania. He is married and the father of 3 grown children. So would our 3 candidates please come up to the table in front of me. And Martin, don't sit. You're going to come up here first. Each candidate will now make an opening statement of 3 minutes, and Mr. Babinick will open us up.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to come to Binghamton, and what a setting right here. Plus, I always appreciate the opportunity to be with Rotarians. The notion of service before self means a lot to me, and I know that each of you are committed to making the community a better place and touching the lives of many. To give a little more background on the story of how I got here, as was mentioned, I grew up in Little Falls, just east of Utica, a small town, population 5,000. My dad worked in factories, like many, and my mom and dad raised 7 children, the youngest being a person with special needs. The opportunity for me to graduate from a community college and then move on to work with Navy Exchanges, which operates the post exchanges or retail stores, gave me and my wife Krista, we've been married 36 years, I met her in college, and we traveled the world and had a chance to work with the Navy as a civilian. And I learned a lot about not only our national defense and what goes on and how other countries look at the U.S., but I was very fortunate that in my last assignment with Navy Exchanges, I came back to the U.S. And landed in the Silicon Valley area where Krista and I, my wife, we started a company. And that company helps small businesses with all their headaches of being an employer. And that put me on a journey to appreciate how difficult it is to start and grow a business, not just my own, but we're in the business of helping other companies, including navigating a lot of regulations that the government makes it harder for small businesses to be successful. After building that business up to a stage, we actually decided to relocate our family from Silicon Valley back to my hometown of Little Falls. And that's where, after a period of commuting back and forth across the country, I finally stopped doing that in 2010 and started a nonprofit that has its mission of helping other people create companies, because that's what I believe is the secret to creating more jobs. I'll have a chance to go into that in more detail in some upcoming questions, but it's safe to say that I'm running for office on the belief that we have the resources right here in upstate New York that can help us create jobs without having to take our tax dollars and have the government pick winners, as is too often done in our current environment. And that combination of lower taxes, less regulation, and harnessing our assets is what can really make a difference in turning around the environment that we're in, particularly in the southern tier, where we've lost a lot of manufacturing jobs, and indeed help more of our families stay together so that we have a chance to restore economic vitality and increase quality of life. That's the reason I'm running for Congress.
Ms. Tenney, the same, 3 minutes, opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for inviting us and having this very important forum. I think this may be the first and last time we get serenaded by a group as politicians, so we greatly appreciate that. I know it's been a little bit rough, as most elections are. Just wanted to tell you a little bit more about my background. I'm born and raised in Utica area, New Hartford. I live across the street from the house I grew up in. My family business was started in New York in 1946 by my grandfather with $100. He actually bought the presses of the old Norwich Pharmaceutical Company and created his own business. He also created a newspaper division. We've had some hard times throughout the years in New York, but I went on to be a lawyer, and I'm the attorney also for the business. I started working when I was 16 in our business in some fashion or another. Became a partner, and then decided it was time to join the family business when my parents were very ill. I ran the business. We were literally just about in bankruptcy, and I was able to turn around our newspaper division, which we had up in upstate, up in the upper Madison County was actually where we were founded. The Mid-York Press, the Mid-York Weekly, and also the Penny Savers, which we owned. We were able to sell them after much struggle in 2004, right after my father died. I raised my son as a single mother. And I cared for my parents across the street, who are both deceased at this point. It was tough. I know what it's like to actually beg for accounts receivable. I know what it's like to be a small business owner. I know what it's like to face competitors who have government money. They have subsidies coming from government to help them run their business while we don't. And it's a struggle, and it's one of the reasons I ran for the state assembly in the first place, was because of this unfairness, this corporate welfare or subsidies, you call it what you want. What it does is it is government picking winners and losers. And I'm proud to say I'm the only person in this room who's running for office, for Congress, who has not been the recipient of massive hundreds of, millions, let's say tens of millions, in what's called corporate welfare in the form of tax credits or other money just given to my business to survive. We've been incorporated in New York since 1946. We pay our New York corporate taxes. We pay whatever taxes we have to pay. We employ all of our employees right here in New York. We've never left. We're still here. It's a struggle. We're not multimillionaires. We're modest. We live a modest life. And part of the reason that we can't succeed in New York is because of the progressive tax and spend, central planning type policies that we've had in New York that has caused the decline, not just in the Utica-Rome area, but also down in the southern tier and throughout this entire district. Just drive up Route 8 or Route 12. And I realized when I was sought to run for office in 2010 that that's exactly what politicians kept saying. Oh, we're gonna help you out. We're gonna give money to this guy and that guy, and it doesn't work. And we have nothing to show for it for these sort of cronyist pay-to-play policies. Not only are they unfair, they're corrupt. And U.S. Attorney Preet proved that a few weeks ago because of a relationship to his Startup New York plan, where where numerous members related to Governor Cuomo have been indicted. So I apologize for the delay, but thank you so much. I look forward to talking with you as we go on.
Thank you. Mrs. Myers, your opening statement, please.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate being able to be here at Rotary. Rotary is the epitome of service. I'm a Vestal Rotarian, and I certainly understand your mission, applaud our Rotarian mission. I don't think people in society really give Rotary the credit or really know everything that Rotary does throughout the world, and kudos to all of you. I have to agree with the singing at the Vestal Rotary meeting. Mary Surdy might attest to this. Our singing is really, really bad, but that was a nice, happy song, and thank you very much for that. I'm Kim Myers, and as Linda had said, and most of you know, I was born right here, right in this city. a couple blocks away up on the east side of Binghamton. You know, people talk about humble beginnings. Well, you know, my husband and I and my siblings have always talked about, you know, we didn't have a lot, but we had enough. We really didn't want for something. We worked as a community. Our community was all pretty much the same. Growing up in a family business, as Linda said too, my dad started with $300 that his grandmother had in his cookie jar and handed it to him and said, go follow your dreams. That's something my father instilled in all of us, as well as the knowledge that hard work is what it takes. He had always said to us a number of cliches that I realize as an adult now is why they're a cliche, because they stand the test of time. And he always used to tell us that there's no such word as can't. You just have to keep trying, and you just have to working at it. When my siblings and I took over my dad's business in the 1980s when he became ill, that's exactly what we did. We said there's no such word as can't. We worked hard. We worked tireless hours. There's really a book in there someplace, I'm telling you right now. There's a book about the near-death experiences that we had. Tim and I spent, I forgot what anniversary it was, in the break room because those Umbro shorts missed the truck and they had to be in the ad the next day. So it was a family business that we never complained about. We just did whatever we had to do. It has grown to be the American dream. I couldn't be more proud of all that we've accomplished and all that gives us the opportunity to give back to our community. In Binghamton, what we can do for our community, and more importantly, I have to say the way our community responds to us. The gratitude that we receive from our community for the Dick's Open, the marathons, or all the other jobs that we bring to the southern tier is very gratifying to us. My dad also told us, which I think that applies to running for Congress and why I'm running for Congress, is he also said, whoever told you it was going to be easy? You know, life is not easy. Running for Congress is not easy, but I'm doing it for the right reason, that we are going to make life better in the 22nd, bring jobs here, and increase the livability for our area. I would like some of my 6 children to be able to settle here in our area. So thank you very much.
Okay, I want to thank all 3 candidates for their opening statements, giving us an opportunity to get to know them a little better. Now for the questions, and I will ask these one at a time to the different candidates. First question, and it's really a 3-part question, and Ms. Tenney, you get to answer this one first. What do you see is the greatest problem facing this congressional district? Why is that the greatest problem? And if elected, what will you do as a member of Congress to address that problem?
Thank you. I think the greatest problem is obvious to all of us, anyone in business. The economy is the biggest problem that we have in this district. It's the biggest problem, which is going to be question 2, facing the nation. As I sort of alluded to in my opening remarks, the biggest problem we have in this state is that we are dead last in just about every business-friendly category. We have the highest taxes. We have the highest combined property and sales tax. We have a regulatory burden unlike any other state. It's one of the worst. We have the 2nd highest energy costs in the nation. We have the largest out-migration not only of citizens, but of businesses and manufacturing in these communities. And why is this happening? Because we have a system in New York State that's in Albany that thinks that tax and spend, pay-to-play principles, cronyism, taking millions in taxpayer money and picking winners and losers and telling us who's going to be winning, who should be running our lives, a central plan type of economy, is what's going on. 70% of the new jobs in the entire nation are created by small businesses, and that's the solution. The solution is small businesses. What many people also don't realize is still in New York State, the #1 industry is agriculture. And every business policy that we take in New York State is a shot to agriculture. It's not helping the tradition of family farms. Family farms produce our food. The closer we are to a smaller family farm, the more safety there is in the care for the animals, the quality of the product, and we're losing that by having this, imposing a government minimum wage, for example, that the family farms were not exempted from. with no way for them to find their way out. Small businesses are burdened with huge problems. One of the biggest problems that we have actually comes from the federal government, and that's in Obamacare. Andrew Cuomo instituted the healthcare exchanges in New York, and they're imploding, they're falling apart, and our small business community is suffering. Our small business is suffering from Obamacare as well. We have a hard time trying to be competitive and to give our employees an opportunity to have the health care that meets the needs of the exchanges and Obamacare, but also to make us competitive with other government and other businesses in our area. We are in a very rural area in Sherburne, New York. There aren't a lot of opportunities there, and so for us, regulations, Obamacare, energy costs, all these things that we need to reduce, I think are things that are going to improve the economy. One of the biggest things that I think that I've advocated not only on the state level, but I would advocate as a member of Congress, is to reduce the personal income tax. Most small businesses, the biggest job creators, actually use pass-through income, either through an S corporation or an LLC, so they're not actually paying a corporate tax. Reducing the personal income tax, New York has the highest in the nation. Reducing the personal income tax is the signature plan. It's the centerpiece of every successful state around the nation who has brought their economy back. We need to start by doing that because that will empower our business community and the private sector to move in and create the jobs, because government simply does not create jobs that are sustainable. Once the government money that goes to these jobs runs out, they often leave or close or go to another state, and we just can't have that happening. And that's what been the mantra in New York, is we just continue to throw money at all these big businesses to lure them in here, and when the money runs out, they leave. We got to stop doing that. We need to reduce the taxes, reduce the regulatory burden, allow our businesses the chance to grow, and allow them the opportunity to succeed. Thank you.
Same question, and Mrs. Myers, you get it this time. What do you see as the greatest problem facing our congressional district? Why is that the greatest problem? And if elected, what will you do as a member of Congress to address that problem?
I think amongst everybody, especially on this panel, we will agree that one of the greatest things facing us is the need to create jobs. The difference here is that you can have a negative attitude or you can have a positive attitude. We have a lot of very positive, good things that are happening throughout our district. And we've seen some growth, and we've seen some really good things happening here. Running for a federal position, not a state position, can help some of those things move along in a positive manner. We're poised for many exciting developments here, and we need strong leadership in Washington on a federal level to ensure that our communities take full advantage of those things that can come our way as far as job creation. As your next member of Congress, I would advocate for job creation, infrastructure, agriculture, education, affordable renewable energy, and access to credit. Our infrastructure, no doubt, is crumbling around us on a federal level as well as a state level. Our bridges, our roads, our water, high-speed internet, and even our skilled workforce. We need improvement on those. Those will create jobs. And they will attract new businesses that will bring jobs to this area. Agriculture, it's true, it's the #1 industry. We have abundant, rich agriculture that we can capitalize on by the expansion of different cash crops such as industrial hemp, such as hops. Craft breweries is exploding as far as entrepreneurships and small businesses. Right now, they import most of their hops from across the country. I talked to a hops farmer this Saturday, and he's local right in here, and he's expanding his agriculture into hops. That's a good thing that's happening here. The other thing is education. Among the million blessings that I have in my life, and I have many, I was blessed right here in Binghamton to be the product of a quality public school education. My 8th grade social studies teacher, Mrs. Hickling, who is still around in this area, I'll never forget her telling us that in the United States of America, and she was an immigrant, in the United States of America, this government only works if you participate. It's a participatory government. Everyone must participate for this to work. And in our education system, we need to partner with the jobs of the future to create a skilled workforce in coding and technology. And even we have great things happening, like the pharmacy school coming to Johnson City, nanotech up in Rome. We need to make sure that we have a workforce and we have students who can contain the skills for some of the jobs that are going unfulfilled and some of the jobs of the future. Energy is another job creator. As I've traveled around the district, I was up at the turbine wind farm in Madison and a landfill that turned energy, or it turned the gas into energy, and actually had a business that located right near the landfill to take advantage of that clean, inexpensive energy to grow their business. The other thing is, I know as someone who's grown up in a family business and had a small business myself, is in order for businesses to grow, especially small businesses, they need access to credit. In 2008, when the world collapsed financially, there was a knee-jerk reaction for strict rules and regulations that affected everybody. Our small credit unions, our mid-level banks, who are the ones that loan to small businesses, are overburdened with regulations. We need to alter that and untie their hands so that they can extend credit to the businesses that need it. When I was growing up, I knew this firsthand. We sat around the dinner table, and the conversation that seemed normal to me was, one, about the weather, because that affected business; two, about how the New York Giants were doing, because that was very important to us; and three, was about how much money did we pay down on the note this month. I knew that credit and being able to pay that credit back was key to the growth of our business and food on our table. Those are some of the ways that I think that we can create jobs and we can bring jobs to our area. Thank you very much.
Mr. Babinek, I think we all know the question by now, right? Okay.
Well, not only do we all know the question, but all three candidates would agree that jobs is the central issue on the minds of most voters here. We're all aware that in this district we have had cities that were once proud cities that have then suffered a lot of decline because of the loss of jobs. And people have voted with their feet. Upstate New York has lost 1 million people in the last 10 years. It's a huge number. And it's not just the economic impact, but think of the other problems that come up, whether it's drugs, crime, broken up families, a lot of things that can be traced to jobs. Because jobs, it's not just a paycheck, but it's an actual quality of life issue, as we know that there are a lot of problems that come without having a job. Where I differ with regards to my opponents is how we get there. As I mentioned earlier, I started a company in Silicon Valley that ended up servicing a lot of small companies in the newer industries all over the United States. And I can tell you that there are geographies where there is a blossoming amount of job creation in these newer industries. Because believe it or not, it is easier today to start a company in these newer industries than ever before. The barriers to entry have dropped. And when you start thinking about things like software companies, or coming up with maybe a new medical device, or even a business service that can be sold to non-local customers, it is easier to create these businesses than ever before because of the internet making it possible to find a global audience. We're not lacking in smart people. So how do we get from here to this opportunity in these new industries? Policies matter. Clearly, what your congressional representative does in both voting and introducing policy matters. All three of us agree on that. But this is not a state-level office. This is a federal office. And what I bring to the table that is very different than my opponents is how do we harness the opportunity of the role of congressmen to help us move to that next level? Specifically, why do we have our best people leave? Many of them want to remain here with their families. They love the quality of life that we enjoy in terms of our natural beauty, the recreational opportunities, the low cost of living, and all the things that we know are positive things in this area. Why do they leave? Because if you're trying to start one of these companies in these newer industries, you need to have connections to the right resources who can help you. This is what I've spent the last 6 years as a volunteer. I don't get paid for it, but I created a nonprofit that has now built a network of more than 12,000 people that share this vision that the way we create jobs is to help our next generation find the resources they need, even if it's outside their local community. So someone starting a company here in Binghamton, the perfect resource could be up the road in Cortland or Syracuse or someplace in the upstate network, which would help them find the right capital source, find the right mentors, find the right team members. This is what I've worked on, and I can assure you that in the role of congressman, I would continue this journey because it would give me the opportunity to bring the right parties together to advance that journey even faster. This does not happen overnight. It's a longer-term effort, but I've proven by my track record that I take on difficult things that do take a long time. And if you take the time to visit our website at babinetforcongress.com and even go back and look at Upstate Venture Connect, you'll see that I've got a track record of doing exactly what I've described. So there are many opportunities. And this is how we can not only take care of what we have through good constituent service, meaning help our manufacturing companies, help protect our businesses that are here, but build to the future with that vision and that opportunity that we have all the right ingredients.
Martin Babinek. You're listening to a forum for candidates in New York's 22nd Congressional District. It was hosted by the Binghamton Rotary Club. Present were Republican Claudia Tenney, Independent Martin Babinek, and Democrat Kim Myers. Moderator Linda Beamer next asked them to discuss the biggest challenge they feel is facing our country. First up was Kim Myers.
There certainly are many. In our nation, the economy, national security, healthcare, education, global warming, the promise to Social Security and Medicaid, those are all very serious issues. But for me, I've thought long and hard about this. And our greatest issue that directly affects everything else is us, ourselves. The polarization amongst ourselves is our greatest problem. Our inability to meet in the middle, to listen to each other, to problem solve without vicious, personal, untrue attacks. Our leaders seem to think that things are best achieved by telling the struggling, the worried, and the angry what to be afraid of and who to blame for that. We've lost sight of who we are. We are the United States of America, the operative word being united. We are the leaders of the free world. We need to act like it. We need to lead by example. If you look at history in the United States, we are the inventors, the innovators. We invented things like the cotton gin, the telephone, the Model T, the airplane, integrated circuit boards, the personal computer. We have never been bound by limits unless we bind them ourselves. We are the people who identify a problem, a need, and we solve it. Today, we're too busy pointing the finger at who's to blame for it. I believe our problems can be solved. And I believe that all of our issues are all interconnected. As somebody in education, I see it as a big Venn diagram, that everything somehow connects at some point. Education can bring jobs. Jobs can rebuild our infrastructure. Infrastructure will help businesses thrive. Thriving businesses will lower taxes for those who need less government assistance. We are all connected, and it goes on and on. So as a member of Congress, how would I address this? I will build to work relationships as I've done my whole life. Whether it's 18 years on the Board of Education and 8 years in Vestal, where by law you have to come up with a balanced budget, you have a finite amount of money, you have services you have to provide, you have rules and regulations, and you have an outcome which is the best thing for students to achieve. I know how to do that. I know how to work with people in the Broome County Legislature as well. It doesn't matter what this problem is, you need to come together. In Congress, I will work towards solutions, not be an obstructionist. I will work with anybody on any issue. I really don't care if it's a Republican idea or if it's a Democratic idea. If it's a good idea, I believe the people of the United States who are sent to Congress should and can sit down together, come up with a solution, and get it done. There is nothing that we cannot do together. It was designed that way by our founding fathers. This is a country that is about we. I believe we can. We have many good things happening here in the 22nd District and around this country. But I do see the frustration. I do see the anger in the people of our country. The answer to our most pressing issues in the country lies within ourselves. It lies within the people of the 22nd District who have an expectation. They actually have a demand that we do our job. It requires our elected officials to do the right thing in Washington. I will continue in Washington to do the right thing. I simply will do the job. Thank you very much.
Mr. Babinett, same question. The greatest problem facing our country, and what will you do about it?
We have a diverse country. I think about issues. Clearly, if you're in an area that has lost a lot of manufacturing, jobs is without a doubt the big issue. If you're a senior on fixed income, you worry about your costs going up faster than the amount of the cost of living adjustment that Social Security gives you. If you're in a southern border state, you think about things like border security and immigration policy could be top of mind. If you have a piece of property that you own that you've seen the value erode, you think about the housing market and maybe our local property taxes being out of control. If you live in New York City or Washington, D.C., or have a child living there, as we do, you might be thinking about terrorism, the threat of terrorism. We got a lot of issues. But I think today, when I go out and talk to voters, what I hear a lot about is the election right now. People are paying more attention to this presidential election than ever before. Our choices are like none we've ever seen before. Where on the one hand, you have a candidate with a great resume who would be respected by world leaders for what she brings to the table. Yet there's also some personal baggage and some questions of character that have come into play. And on the other hand, you have an individual with a strong business background who clearly has some acumen and knows a lot about what can be done to make a job-generating economy, but has a thin skin and a temperament that makes all of us shudder when certain things are said and done. I mean, this is a really difficult question that is top of mind for most voters. But I agree, we also have a polarized situation that has thrust these candidates on us that many of us would say are not the best candidates that we should have. And how did we get there? We get there because we have these things like low voter turnout in primaries, gerrymandered districts, creating these safe seats. By the way, if you were an incumbent congressman in 2014, you had a 95% probability of being reelected. Now, I don't know about you, but that bothers the heck out of me, all right? We do not have a competitive election environment. These are all the reasons that I decided to run as an independent candidate, because I truly believe this race this year, and the polls back me up on it, I'm competitive. If I break the 26-year logjam that is, no one has been elected since 1990 as an independent candidate, and I can break that this year, it will actually force the parties, the major parties, to start coming together. Because as an independent candidate, it puts pressure on the extremes in both parties to start moving a little bit more to the center where most voters are. So this is a historic period. This presidential election has created a dynamic like none we've ever seen. Voters are angry, voters are frustrated with the choices that they have, and voters are looking for an alternative. You have a chance to make that difference by how you vote for this congressional race.
Okay, Ms. Stinney, your turn.
Thank you.
Greatest problem facing the United States.
Thank you. I hope that all of the candidates will denounce and Kim will have Nancy Pelosi pull the millions in negative ads that are being run against me that have been going on for weeks and weeks if we want to work together. But I do think, again, the biggest issues facing this entire nation is, number one, the economy. We have a $19.5 trillion debt and growing, which one of the Joint Chiefs, Admiral McMullen, not too long ago said was probably the greatest threat to the United States. The second issue is security, and security has to deal with national defense, border security. Those are the major roles that a congressman has. The Constitution is our guiding principle in this country. I think the biggest problem we have is that we've steered away from the Constitution. We're not following it. We're engaging in cronyism. We're allowing our borders to be run over. We're not protecting the sovereignty of our businesses and our nation abroad with trade deals that are negotiated. That we want free trade, but we don't want to have unfair trade to our business community. And the biggest thing, and I've touched on it before, is corruption. Corruption is illegal, but there's also a form of corruption that is so-called legal. And that is the corruption I'm talking about. That's something I fought against as a state assembly person, and that I intend to fight in Congress. My biggest concern is that the parties are too close together. They're working together in coordination against us, the taxpayer. And if anything, my record shows, as a member of the Assembly, I've been called an Albany insider. I mean, there is nothing more outside than a Republican in Albany, especially in the Assembly where it's 107 to 42 Democrats, 107 Democrats to 42 Republicans. I couldn't be more of an outsider. I have had to run against the leadership of the Republican Party, the leadership of the Democratic Party, and have been put in office by rank and file voters simply because I've been fighting corruption and I've been telling the truth. I'm the first person that's elected or otherwise to stand up against corrupt Speaker Sheldon Silver in 2012 and demand his resignation for a secret payoff deal, a deal that would allow sexual harassment right in our own chamber in the Assembly. I called him out. Everyone said my brake lines would be cut. You know, I'm still here today. I called out the governor, called out Dean Skelos. Corruption is on both parties. It's not just one side or the other. But when it comes to the presidential race, let me point out something. I think Hillary Clinton is pretty corrupt, and a lot of it is now being called legal. My opponents are both huge supporters of Hillary Clinton. They support the progressive policies, the taxing, the spending, the debt, and all these things that have caused the problem with our economy. It is about jobs, but the last thing we need to do to create jobs is to have government interfering. And I challenge Mr. Babinec to how many jobs he has actually created in the state of New York without having government money. And he claims he has a huge network, but look, I've been providing jobs with our family business before I was even born. We have generations of people who work in my family business, and I'm sure they do in Dick's Sporting Goods as well, and some of those jobs are still here. But the truth is, 37,000 jobs are created by Dick's Sporting Goods, which is phenomenal. But those jobs aren't here in Binghamton. They're not here in New York State. They're somewhere else. And our jobs are here. And our small business community needs to be helped, and the small business community includes the family farms. It's people who are working day to day who, yes, rely on Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and all those things. But Mr. Babinec has specialized in helping people and businesses get out of the way of Obamacare, profit off it, and then put them on Medicaid, which burdens us as taxpayers. That, to me, is not a formula and a record of somebody we want to send to Congress. The role of Congress is unique. We are not out to try to, a lot of these functions that we do are state functions. Education is a passion of mine as well, and I commend Kim for her passion for education. I am also on the Education Committee in the Assembly, but one of the biggest problems we have is the federal government has interfered in our local governments and our ability of the state government to manage education. That's not a function of the federal government. And that's something that I would be fighting against. Let's empower teachers and administrators in those schools, whether it's at the community college level. I know we have some great community college representatives here, whether it's at the primary school level. They are professionals. We put huge standards on them. Let them be professionals. Get the federal government out of the way. Allow the state to do its job, which is education. But when it comes to the federal government, one of our primary roles when this government was created in 1789, believe it or not, it was for national defense and border security. It was to protect the colonies. And that's still the primary function of the federal government today. We have a military that has lost so many resources. We have Lockheed Martin right here in our area. I met with Lockheed Martin yesterday. They're very concerned about the levels that we have in defense. We are not prepared for the enemy of today. My son is a Naval Academy graduate. I raised him as a single mom. I'm really proud of that. While I ran my family business, which was a huge struggle, I didn't have help like many other people. I didn't get government help, that's for sure. And I took care of my aging parents. I'm the sandwich generation. I took care of my son and also took care of my parents while I ran my family business. It wasn't easy. but he's now serving as an active duty Marine. The resources to our military and the technology and the investment we need to make in our military for this unusual, this terrorism, the enemy of today and tomorrow is something we're not prepared for, and we need to rebuild our military. Those are things that we do on the federal level. We don't go out and interfere with the private sector, the marketplace, give money to, in the form of corporate welfare, however form it takes, hand that over to businesses, especially the big ones, and then leave. We have an obligation to our citizens to create the jobs. Again, the small business communities like mine, the pizza store, the mom and pop shop, the small grocery store, all those different businesses are contributing to our economy in a much bigger way in some cases. But we have to have jobs across all sectors, and yes, we do need to have technology. I've supported all the technology jobs, but the one thing I can't do as a member of the Assembly and as a member of Congress is I can't support things that are unconstitutional. I support many of the initiatives that have come through, whether it was the pharmacy school here or whether it's the nanotechnology center in Utica, but I'm not going to vote for a budget that gives the governor unconstitutional power, a governor who is now under investigation by the federal government, to take our money and pick winners and losers. And that's exactly the kind of person that both of my opponents are. They are Cuomo, Hillary people who support this cronyism. And I'm sorry, it's just the nature of the way it is. And I can't support that, not as a member of the Assembly, and nor will I as a member of Congress. We have to first stand for our Constitution and determine that that's what the road we're going to take. Omnibus spending bills, bills that include cronyism, bills under a message of necessity, as we do in New York, continuing resolutions, as we're now doing in the federal government, all of those things are robbing you, the citizens, of your obligation to be part of this great constitutional republic we have. A lot of people call it a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. We are self-governing. That's why it's so essential that our young people and our students and all of us participate in government. And quite honestly, I think a lot of people don't participate because they do think it's a rigged system. Unless you're curry favor with a politician, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's what I've always stood for. I've always been honest. I've told my positions about everything. I never turned down a debate. I never turned down any opportunity to tell the voters what I'm trying to do. I've term limited myself in the state assembly. I have a great record in spite of the commercials that Nancy Pelosi is spending against me. I have a 97% record in attendance in the assembly, which is phenomenal. Only missed votes for very critical issues like the death of my mother, her sickness, to attend my son's graduation from the Naval Academy. I mean, these are just unfair attacks against me. I've stood up for our citizens time and again, and the rank and file citizens in our communities have put me in place. Not the insiders, not the leaders. I wasn't even endorsed by the Republican Party, but I won a primary with $2.5 million spent to my $200,000, and I'm going to be grossly outspent in this case. And I hope that the voters prevail again in the rank and file and see through to it. But that's the kind of thing that we need in Congress, someone who's willing to stand up to both parties and the elites. And that's something I'm going to do. And I'm going to term limit myself in Congress just as I have in the State Assembly. So thank you, and I hope to have your vote.
Overall, why should the voters elect you instead of your opponent? And Mr. Babinec, you go first.
About 100 years ago, my grandfather emigrated from Slovakia. He was 16 years old and came with all of his possessions in a single bag. He wanted the American dream for his son, my dad. And my dad worked in factories, became a skilled electrician, and was very proud of that. And as I said, my dad and mom raised 7 children, 6 of whom became college graduates. That American dream was achieved. We're seeing that slip away because of the job issues that we've talked about. It's something that's very top of mind for me. I've been fortunate to live that American dream, far exceeding what my parents and even myself had in mind when I graduated from college. But I made the decision to come back to upstate New York, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. My wife and I chose to raise our children here because of our love for the place, as well as the desire to have our children know their grandparents and their extended family. I've never looked back. But I've also learned a lot by being away for that period of time. I learned a lot about these new industry companies. I learned a lot about what they go through when they grow. And I've put that knowledge and the relationships that I've built over a very long period of time, I've put those to work now, not for myself to do another company, but instead to help that next generation. Because that's how I believe we can turn this around and really make a difference in growing more jobs. I accept the challenge of my opponents saying, well, what have I done? All you have to do is visit our website. You can read the testimonials with many, many people giving specific examples of how I have helped them, not only individually, but specifically creating this network that has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs with their companies. And visit the Upstate Venture Connect website as well. The evidence is all there. And you know, when I think about the congressional role and the opportunity to not just cast votes and make policy, but also constituent service, where you have a need to help people who are trying to navigate their way through the federal system, or businesses that need help, or local institutions that need help, those are very important responsibilities that I'm up to task in doing, and having built today what is a very large company. But also, leadership is that third pillar of actually getting things done, and that is where I differ from my opponents, because for me, it's not just about what votes I cast, or even the constituent service, but what change can I bring about? I've helped bring about change that has impacted other people's lives, and that's what I stand on. And finally, I'll say that the qualities that you want to have in your congressman include someone with the mind, the heart, and the soul to represent you. The mind to kind of pick through all the things that a person can spend their time on. What are the right issues? You're one of 435 congressmen. It's very difficult to move the needle in that body. You've got to pick your battles and initiatives carefully, work on the right stuff. The heart to recognize that the right stuff may not be for people that look like you, but someone that has a completely different set of needs, have come through their life with a very different route than what my life has been right. So the heart to see that, but most importantly, the soul. The soul to make the right decisions that are not beholden by special interests. As you know, I've not accepted $1 of special interest political action committee money. My opponents have all had their campaigns funded by these large Washington-based special interest PAC groups, and that comes with a price. I believe having the soul to make the decisions, whereas Congressman, I am only beholden to you, the voter, makes me independent and gives me the opportunity to represent you with distinction. I hope to earn your vote on November 8th.
Ms. Tenney.
Sorry, I'll be brief. I was a little long on the last one. I apologize. I just want to just point out a couple of differences between me and my opponents and why you should vote for me. I have a proven record of standing up for my constituents. I've been elected against the grain, as I've indicated, on 3 different occasions in the state assembly. In 2010, I ran. I defeated the United County Republican chairman to win the seat against the establishment. I was then redistricted into the largest district created in the history of New York, which starts in the Utica area and stretches all the way to Orange, Ulster, and Sullivan County. It's a 3.5-hour drive from one end to the other, almost twice the length of this congressional district. I pay for all of the travel and everything through that district myself. It costs me anywhere between $800 and $1,000 a month, depending on the price of gas. But I pay for that. I do not get reimbursed for it, but I do it because I'm on a mission to do what's right for this community and our small businesses. At some point, I will go back into the private sector, whether I win or not this time. I'm still in our family business. I'm the controlling shareholder of it right now. I will give it up if I win this seat. But I think it's important to know that I have stood with courage in a very difficult world. Politics is very tough, not just for it's particularly tough on women in a lot of ways. And I fought this battle, and I think that I've proven that, and I have a great record. I have a great record of cutting taxes, of never voting for a tax increase in spite of some of the ads you might see. I've never done that. I stand for our farmers and our small business community. I have over 60 bills that were passed in the state assembly, and just for the record, so everybody knows, there has not been a bill passing the state assembly by a Republican without a Democratic sponsorship since 1974. So we must work with our Democratic colleagues. I have many good friends on both sides of the aisle there. I work with them to provide solutions, and it's an honor to work with them. Many of them have great ideas. They stand for something. And I really appreciate them. And I appreciate them more because they are genuine. They might be liberal Democrats, but they also believe in their cause. I don't find people who, like, for example, Mr. Babinek, who was an independent, who pushed and tried to become a Republican. He actually tried to get elected on the Republican line, and now claims he's an independent again, to try to tell the voters he's something that he's not. And I think that's something that people need to know. And I know it sounds a little harsh, but the truth is something that people need to know. I don't have between $50 and $150 million like both of my opponents do in net wealth. So I have to, and I don't have the resources behind me to assist me in my campaign like they do, and to be self-funding. But Mr. Babinek says he doesn't have any connection to Super PAC, but he sits on the board of a major Super PAC. He has donated nearly $1 million for special interest money to gain access to politicians. And he has also received and reaped benefits. He's received tens of millions of dollars in corporate welfare to assist his Silicon Valley business and to assist him in profiting. And so for him to say that he's the only independent here, I just don't see how that rings true. I mean, honestly, most of my campaigns for Assembly I self-funded, and not with a lot of money. I won my last race with about $7,000 because I work really hard. In spite of the ads, I work hard. I make sure I listen to my constituents. I represent them once you're elected. It doesn't matter what party you're in or who you are. I fight for you no matter what to try to solve your problem, whether it's a constituent concern or whether it's advocating for your group on a national or state level. I do what I can. I even represent people still who aren't even in my current Assembly district, who are in my former Assembly district, because they know I'm reliable. They know that I understand the issues, and that I will work hard to help them. And that's something that distinguishes me, I think. Right now I have a record of service that is very good, and I will do that as your member of Congress, and I appreciate again your vote. Thanks.
Mrs. Myers, why should we elect you over your two opponents?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody's time today. We're in a Rotary Club here, and one of the first hallmarks of Rotary is it the truth? I'm not going to take your time to whine. I'm just going to ask you to consider that Dick's Sporting Goods has 44 stores in New York State and employs over 3,000 people in New York State, with 500 more jobs to come. But what I really urge you to do is, in this Welcome to Politics, on my website I've put up a site that's called Fact Check. So rather than to go back and forth, I'm just going to ask you, if you have any question, go to Fact Check on my webpage, and you can answer the questions. The question really is, why should you vote for me? Am I wealthy? I am. I'm very proud of that. I know what it took, and many of you in this room who have been here your whole life know as well. I don't need to apologize for that. I'm very proud of what we have accomplished. I can make a difference in Washington, and that's the sole reason why I'm seeking this job. I've got the right priorities, the same priorities that I've had my entire life when serving as school board member, even right down to PTA, anything. Many of you know I sit on the Child Hunger Task Force. Anyone that needs any help, myself, I'm there, and I've got a proven record of that. I will always be well informed on every issue. I've proven that again, in all my service. I don't just vote. And in the county legislature, I've voted for whatever the issue is, if it's the right side. Don't even look at if it's Democrat or Republican. I look at, is it the right thing to do? And I have a reputation of being able to convince people from whatever party, let's take a look at this. I found out this information. Did you know that? That's what you need to do in Congress. That's why I would be the best person for this job in Congress. Contrary to popular belief, economic development does not mean tax-free. It means jobs. I have a reputation that I think precedes me, and many people who know me would agree. When I do something, I do it all the way. I don't shirk responsibility, I don't whine, I don't complain. I do whatever it has to do to get the job done. Washington is in gridlock, which everybody's sick of hearing that word. American people, like myself, are fed up. We need somebody that's going to go to Washington with the right priorities to do the right thing for the right reason. I would appreciate if I could earn your vote, and I believe that that is myself as the best candidate to go to Congress to represent the New York 22nd District. Thank you very much.
And that concludes this candidates forum featuring contenders in New York's 22nd Congressional District. They are Independent Martin Babinek, Republican Claudia Tenney, and Democrat Kim Myers. On October 22nd at noon, these candidates will participate in another debate on WSKG Public Media, organized by New York's public broadcasters. And there's also a final debate hosted by WSKG Public Media and the League of Women Voters on November 3rd at 8 p.m. Please join us for both forums if you can. For WSKG News, I'm Charles Compton.